So we are here with the lovely Nikki Davenport, and we're talking romance, and we're talking about her steamy series, and she's going to share some very interesting details about how she works and about her structure and all of that stuff. And can they ask questions, Nikki?
Sure.
You can ask questions because Nikki said yes, you can ask questions. I was about
I
to
might
just
regret that later, but
You might
yeah.
regret it, knowing this crowd who always asks lots of questions. The thing, whoa, there it is. I missed it. Kindness is the word. There is kindness right there. And I can see some people coming in who were just in certification with me. So we're just giving them a little chance to have a quick break and get in before we get started. Just, you know, on the topic of kindness. So, Nikki has been in our community for a while, and we've been following her journey for, gosh, I don't know, a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you haven't read her books, I'm going to say, yes, you should. And here I've put a link up there. It's a book linker link, which will take you to any site that's relevant to your country to buy her book, which I highly recommend, and you should. So Nikki writes the Crown and Heart series. Spicy romance?
Yes. I would
Yeah.
say steamy. Steamy
Steamy.
spice feels a little different. Feels a little different.
Okay, so steamy romance. Yeah. So let's talk about my first question to you is when did you decide, like, what was the moment you knew I'm writing a series as opposed to a standalone book?
So what ended up happening was I had this huge cast of characters because I'm a firm believer that romance doesn't happen in a vacuum, that you still have your entire rest of your life going on. And there were people in these characters' lives that were important to her. And they had things to say and ways to encourage and sort of call her out when she was not behaving uh, appropriately. That makes it sound bad, but you know how your friends will roast you and they will hold you to a higher standard if they're really good friends. And this is what they were doing to my main character. And I was realizing, well, if they're speaking from experience, then that must mean that they had their own fabulous love stories to get them to where they're knowledgeable and can give advice to somebody else. So that's when I started thinking, okay, well, I love it when I read books that are interconnected. I love those, and I feel like I get to know the characters a little bit better as over the course of the series. And I was like, okay, I can try that. Let's give it a try. And then next thing you knew, I was at nine books in the series that are planned and in varying stages of completeness. So it's yes, it was a huge undertaking that doesn't always feel huge because it's all feels like it's all one big ball of yarn. And as I'm writing, when I write something in one book, it might spur me to think, oh, let me make sure I make a note of that and refer to it in the other book so that it can be like a little Easter egg for folks who are careful readers.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about the series and tell us what book one is about.
Yes. So, book one, which is called International Incident, and it takes place here in Washington, D.C. I'm right outside D.C. And what we have here is an unmarried monarch of a fictitious Caribbean country. And the way I've been describing it is Wakanda meets Bridgerton. And so what you have here is a case of mistaken identity. And she's mistaken for her assistant by a sexy American architect.
Oh.
And these two have a chance to connect over their different backgrounds, over what it was like growing up in different countries. And this was originally going to be the last book in the series, but then I realized that I won't have given a really good introduction to the world of Lytua in the other books because they take place there. And I don't know about you, but if I'm from like the same town or country, like I might talk about where we're from, even when we're
Sure.
from the same place, but not the same way you would when you are from a different country. So this was my shorthand for info dump, as I guess you could say. So I ended up doing the last book first, to where this is a duet, and I keep saying I will never do a cliffhanger again because my nerves can't take it. Um, where we have this complete story of the queen's romance, queen falling in love. So in the first book in the prequel series, I guess you could call it, I've got to find a way to describe this so that it makes more sense. Uh, but we're starting with the captain of the Queen's elite guard, who is her very good friend and has very smart things to say to her when she is not sure what's happening, when she's falling in love. So I've gone back in time 7 years to the beginning of her reign. She was an elected monarch, and she wasn't always a great monarch. She was 26 when she came to the throne. She didn't know anything. I didn't know anything at 26. Um, but we get to see her grow as a great leader throughout the course of the other romances. So that by the time you get through to book 9, you've seen how it turned out because you've read book 1 and 2. You've seen she's in this happy, wonderful relationship with the love of her life, and you get to see little snippets of that throughout the books with some of the great scenes and the backstory that go into making her who she is when we meet her at first. So I'm a big fan of like the clip show. If you've ever watched a series back when things were syndicated, and they would give you the here's what you missed last week or this season on
Yeah.
so and so, sort of like that, so that you're like, oh, I remember that happening, and then it feels like a little love note to readers who are careful with things, and they okay, readers pick up on things. As Linda O'Donnell says, I thought I was dropping breadcrumbs, but apparently I was dropping loads to where people were picking up on the stuff. They were picking up what I was laying down.
Nice. There's Linda. All right. So, okay, very interesting. The book 9 became book 1. How far were you into outlining the series when you decided, oh, wait a minute, it's out of order?
It wasn't long into it, but what
Okay.
ended up happening was, so I had one great big Google document as I was just sort of writing like a snippet here, a scene there, a title here. I was half asleep and I thought of a line of dialogue, and then I wrote it down and it didn't make any sense the next day. But I had this huge document, and I was seeing sort of stories come together within the big document, and it was like, okay, this is unwieldy. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to tell the story and in what order, because what happens in one story influences what happens in another. And with little things that I was trying to figure out, what in the world? Nobody's going to know what I'm talking about if, or they're going to miss all the rich
Okay.
cultural detail, all of the backstory and the culture and heritage that are created for Litua. They're not going to get as cleanly in book 1 if I started on the island as they would if someone from the island is dating someone who is American. So
Right.
then that gives me a chance to have them bond over that. There are lots of differences, lots of similarities, and have a chance to have some sort of cultural fish out of water moments. And I
Okay.
said, okay, well, you're going to have to write that one first and hope that everybody comes along with you on this ride.
All right. So there's a lot of decision making on here, and you mentioned at the very beginning lots of characters. So how do you decide which character you're going to spotlight in the following book? So after what you got to book 3, book 4, how did that work?
Yes, all at once. So apparently, I don't do things halfway. That if the
Okay.
great idea is coming, it's just going to happen all at once. So I was thinking almost like a squirrel, where I'm like squirrel, or like the dog in Up, or who's like, oh, that would make a great story. Oh, what about that character?
Right.
And my characters are bossy. I know lots of writers say that their characters talk to them, and mine do too. And I have some who may have originally started as a no-name side character who are just insistent that they have something to say and that they have an adventure that they need to go on. So I knew at first that all 6 of the Queen's Elite Guards would have their own story. And then all of a sudden, the Queen's stylist and the palace chef are having a wonderful moment. And that was a spin-off novella that came from a challenge within the Fictionary community, actually. I can't remember who put that challenge up in the romance thread that said, okay, here's a prompt that something happens with a couple of coworkers over a weekend that changes their relationship. They get trapped together. How does it change?
Right.
So I thought, how am I going to do this? And so next thing you know, I've got the stylist and I don't want to give it all away, uh, but I had so much fun with the enemies to lovers. That's one of my favorite tropes.
Okay.
Um, so they had not originally planned to be in there. And then in the second book of the duet, Queen of His Heart, there is a friend of my hero's who helps him sort of solve this mystery of what has happened to Kara. And he is having this sort of antagonistic relationship from 1,000 miles away with the tech that's there in Washington, D.C. And I was like, wait, those sound a little like sparks. Like maybe they might hmm. So
Mhm.
now they have their own story. And then I have bossy children. Well, not my well, my own are bossy, but before I was even finished with the story of the Queen's story, their daughter was pushing to have her story told. And I'm probably looking like I'm insane. I remember being in the car at a stoplight going, well, it's not even your turn yet. They haven't even gotten together yet. Give me a minute. And well, I could have just been singing along to the radio for all anybody knew. But sometimes the ideas come faster than I can even get them down. And I love that creative
Yep.
energy because when I'm able to let it out and I'm shushing family and I'm forgetting to eat and even get up from where I'm sitting, but all of it just sort of comes pouring out and then the connections start appearing almost like
Yeah.
as with dropping those bread loaves that like I have a couple who it'll be a second chance romance,
Okay.
but that's not till like book 5. So I'm laying the groundwork of them splitting up a little bit earlier, like
Right.
the couple that is being focused on in book 4 um, can be noticing, are you okay? I'm seeing some tension or just
Yeah.
some wonderings or noticing so that it won't be a surprise when it happens. You'll be like, I saw that coming. I knew it.
Nice. So I'm seeing several things here that's really interesting. So one is the open series concept that your series is based on the queen, location, her family, her I don't know, would you call them employees? Her
Elite guards, yes.
elite guards. I guess they're employees. I don't know. I don't have elite guards, so I don't know what they'd be called, but those people.
Mhm.
And so there's a you can see that the connection when we're looking at an open versus a closed series, that these are individual romances.
Yes.
And even though they're individual stories, there are connections from one story to the next story. And it's a little bit in the Bridgerton concept of it's all the siblings get a they're the protagonist for their romance throughout that family. So I'm seeing that 9 books. I doubt it. I bet there's more than 9. That
Probably.
entourage can completely grow. So, you've got a full baseline set up. And the other thing I think is really important to pull out from what you said is that because in book 5, 6, or 7, whatever it is, this couple is going to have the second chance. That's their trope. That's going to be their story. It has to be planted earlier, and so by knowing basically what your future books are about, it gives you an opportunity, which is why we love outlining this series, right, Lisa Taylor? That it gives you that chance so that people will remember. And Louise Penny, she's a Canadian author with the same detective all the way through, and she does this brilliantly where she'll have like one just junior cop barely story, and then 3 books later, boom, that's his story as the whatever the crime
Right.
was. And as a reader, when you're a fan of an author, you remember that. You know that little minor character was there for some reason, maybe not in that book, but boom, now they're in the next book. So super clever. Now I want to go to Deanne. She has a question for you. She says, when did you begin to write this series, Nikki? Wondering how many years the series has been in the making.
Not that long, actually. So I was in breast cancer treatment right after the pandemic shut down. Shutdown happened in March. I was diagnosed in May. So I was being driven up the wall in a too small condo with an elderly cat, a husband, 2 preteens, and no privacy. So honestly, chemo was like mom's day out, where it was finally a place where I had some peace and quiet. And just all of a sudden, the ideas started flowing. And my character in books 1 and 2, the queen herself, she's a breast cancer survivor. So I think part of me was channeling all of my frustration and fear and uncertainty into her and seeing her have, a full life after cancer to where it wasn't the end of her story. And it was really just sort of the beginning. And I adopted that for myself, actually. And when I was finished with chemo and not nearly finished with the book, but I said, if I face down death, there is nothing else for me to fear. Rejection letter, ha ha ha, I laugh in the face. Um, so I decided I was going to be brave enough to put it out there. So it's only been a couple of years. International Incident was published in November of 2023.
Mhm.
So I came to Fictionary right before that in 2022, I think,
Yep.
when I saw you do the revision workshop during Nano. And then I came on board and it was like, oh, this is fabulous. This is really helpful, especially for doing a series, because although I might start writing in Scrivener, when I get to the point where I'm like, okay, this feels like it might be solid enough to maybe stand on its own. And then I put it in Fictionary, and Fictionary says, no, not yet. Uh, it will be, and it's
In a
great
kind way.
because exactly the nicest way possible, but it's exactly what you need sometimes because although I may be thinking, this is the inciting incident, or I wanted this to be the inciting incident, the way I have it plotted or structured out, it's in the incorrect place. So that means I have some more work to do to make it flow better. And that's become sort of my checkpoint, maybe about halfway through the first draft, just so I can see, am I going to need to really beef up Act Three, or do I need to trim down on Act One? Uh, but it's such a useful tool visually for someone like me who needs to see the things visually, and then I can move things around and then have it um, not yell at me, but I always take pictures of the nice looking story arcs so I can refer back to
Yep.
them. Be like, that is a beautiful arc. Huh.
I love my story arc.
Yes, like I could do it. I can do it. Anybody who does not uh, work in the creative realm has no idea how what a rush that is to see your story. It's working. It's not finished, but it's
Yep.
working.
Yep. It's a big deal, right? And that's part of motivating a writer. Like you can actually see it growing and into something that is a story.
Yes.
I mean, okay, I might be just a tad biased, but you know.
No, not at all. You are absolutely right.
Let's talk about in your writing routine, what's a non-negotiable habit that you are not willing to break? Is there, like, clearly you've done a volume of writing in a very short period of time. So share with us something that helps you do that.
Hiding.
Okay.
So I mentioned the two small condo. Well, I've got one kid in off in college this year, so slightly less crowded, but I get very easily distracted visually. So in a house where there's not a standalone office for me, I was trying to figure out where in the world am I going to go? Am I going to go in a closet? I would have if I had to. Uh, but I'm in the sunroom where, and actually here comes kid number two coming home from school. Um, we have a sunroom that my husband, who is a genius in many ways, uh, decided that we could put some barn doors up and have a little thing that will close off. It doesn't close off sound or anything, but at least it will cut down on the visual distractions because I have to have that. I can't do anything when I told you, I'm like, squirrel, what's happening? And then I'll lose my flow. And that's not good. When I get into a flow, I want to stay there as long as I possibly can. So I've got to have no distractions. And I'm someone who does quiet and also something that's in short supply. It's a wonder I got anything written when I live in the house that I do.
Mm.
Uh, but I need quiet to be able to hear the characters yelling at me. And like I've tried doing maybe music, something that's soft in the background, even like meditation, like the singing bowl, and what even that was distracting me. So I know myself well enough now to know that I need to be secluded, secluded and quiet. And I have to plan when I can get those because, again, you live in a household with other humans and you need things that they are not necessarily just ready to do. I mean, I live with a teenager. for all teenagers for not talking to you, they sure are loud. They make a lot of noise. So trying to figure out when is the best time for my creative in that Venn diagram with, okay, here's what I have available, here's what I need, here's what I can make happen. And it might only be 20 minutes, but darn it, it'll be a good 20 minutes.
So that's really important because I mean, I think to be really good at something, you have to be just a little bit selfish. And by that, I mean, you got to find time for just you to do whatever it is you want to be really good at because you can't be really good at it unless you spend a lot of time at it. And I think a lot of
Right.
writers, especially at the beginning, struggle with that because people outside don't understand how massively this important this is to you as a person to write this book. And you know, I think, oh, I'm writing a book. Oh, that's nice, dear. I think, oh, yeah, it's more than that, but okay, right? And so you have
Yes.
to learn to say, Mm-mm-mm, this is my time. That
Right.
it's self-care. That's a way better way of saying that, Eva. Thank you. Way better. That it's
Yes.
self-care, that you need the time and you got to prioritize it somehow when we all, every one of us has demands from all over the place of I need, that you have to at some point go, Mm-mm, I need
Well,
to.
and you need time to be bad at it. Like when
Yes,
you start anything, unless you're some sort of prodigy, you probably stink at whatever it is, and you need time to practice. I've been trying to learn how to crochet for years. All I've been able to do is make like a lopsided scarf, basically. But it's so relaxing and it fulfills something that I need.
right.
But I needed those first many, many tries
Mhm.
of getting it tied into a knot and not being able to make it work to grow my confidence in it. And, I might not be ready to share my lopsided scarf with the world, but I still need time to work on it. And
Absolutely.
you're right, folks who don't understand how that like my husband is a dear. I love him, been married over 20 years, but he doesn't understand the creative process or the creative struggle. Like, remember I said I needed to be secluded? So there was one day that he happened to be home, and next thing I know, he's knocking on the door with a snack. And he was like, I thought you might be hungry. That's the sweetest thing anybody could ever do. And it was the worst time. I almost lost it because I'm in the flow, I'm ready to go. But the funny thing about it was in the background, I could hear my teenager going, no, it's closed. So he knew enough to not go in there. But you can't neglect a relationship. So it was a learning opportunity to say if the
Yes.
door is closed, unless you're bleeding from an artery or the house is on fire, no snacks.
Then
I'll
it's
come up for air.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. Okay, I want to ask you a romance specific question because there's lots of discussion around what happens in a meet cute. And do they both like each other? Is it just one? How strong is that like? Is there a dislike? What's your view on the essentials of a meet cute?
So it's going to vary for me from couple to couple,
Okay,
actually.
that's a
But
good
I feel
answer
like the
already.
thing that has to make a difference, so there has to be an impression made for good or for bad, that it's something has to be memorable about that person for the other person to be thinking about them after the fact. Because it could be a chance meeting, but maybe they've smelled really good, or you really like the shoes they were wearing, or whatever it might be. It's something that you can hold on to after. And I have actually, Fictionary has taught me how to get out of the habit of having everything happen right at first. Like my first impulse as a writer is I want opening line to be something like, well, I don't hate it. Like that to be the first line with no context, but you need a little bit more story to sort of build it up. And I understand that now, but I want to go for that sort of effect where I want to grab them by the throat. Okay, that sounded really violent. I want to grab the reader and don't let go until the last page. And then at the last page, I want them to be like, darn it, I want more. And that's all going to start with your meet cute. Uh, but if you don't care about the characters, like you have to give the reader a reason to either feel sorry for the character or to empathize maybe, so that when things start happening even early in the book, you care. So it's a big heavy lift in the beginning to get readers to care about
Yeah.
what happens to your character, because it'll make or break your relationship with the whole book.
Yeah.
If you're like, well, that was lackluster, um, you're like, you're not going to be thrilled to read that. But it's helpful feedback. And even I've had that happen. I had a beta reader. I poured my heart out into the book that I'm working on now, and it was the sort of first date for this couple. So this is the captain of the Queen's Elite Guard and his love. That when we met him, they've been married for years, they have kids, all of that. But it's all, fireworks and grumpy know-it-all in the beginning. And so I'm thinking they've had this wonderful, cute date. And my beta reader was like, well, this is kind of lackluster. And I was like, wait, what? But, well, I didn't tune it out. I didn't get my feelings hurt to get all of my feels. But what she said was, from what she knew of that character from the other books, she was nowhere near a match for what we know them to become.
Oh,
And once I shook that off and I was like, okay, I see what she means by that. Like there needed to be a lot more fire, and not that they're throwing things at each other or anything, but there needed to be more there for them to be believable to grow into the people that we know later. So
nice.
I feel like I've set myself up and I've painted myself into a corner almost, because I have to reverse engineer sometime with, okay, that thing that I thought was going to be insignificant, just a throwaway line. Now I've got to build a whole scene around it. What do I do? Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oops. Okay, Raquel wants to know, do you ever lose interest in telling a specific story? Like, has it ever happened to you, you're mid-book and then go, ugh, I don't want to tell this story?
it's usually towards the end when I get to the point you've spent so much time with these characters in their head, them in your head. I know I'm almost finished when I'm ready to pitch the laptop across the room. Um, because
Okay.
they won't behave. They're like children. They won't behave. They won't go where I want them to go. Or there might be like some connective tissue piece for me that's like, it's hard for me to write like a scene from start to end. Like I'll usually do like the juicy parts that are most important to me, and then I have to go back and make it connect and make sense to
Right.
either the previous chapter and whatnot. So that's a little challenging for me, but it's something that I just need to practice. And occasionally, yes, by the time I've been working on these couples for however long, and I've known them from other books, so I know them even longer than
Yeah,
just the work in progress. Sometimes, but that usually means I need to maybe take a break from them. We need to have a separation
sure.
for a little while. Let absence make the heart grow fonder.
It's
Uh,
plot point
and
two. You broke up.
I did, yes, it was the
Oh,
dark moment of the soul.
it's
Uh,
terrible.
but And I'm sure everybody probably has that happen. At some point, you're living and breathing these
Yeah.
folks who are fictitious, and you will find yourself thinking like they are real people. But that sounds like something Jaden would do. Oh, I should write that. My family is very tolerant. When I'm diving for my phone to record a note or anything, they're very patient.
Nice. Very
So
important. Very
they may not
important.
understand the creative struggle, but they do understand and love me. So they are willing to put up with some nonsense.
Very nice. That's good. So we got almost a minute left. Not quite. I just put the link to your book back up at the bottom for anyone who missed it at the top of the chat. So I'm going to end with one piece of advice you would give to writers who want to write that really good romance book.
Do it is the first thing, because
Yep.
you'll talk yourself out of, I'm not good enough. I don't have the experience. Oh, look at that book on the shelf. You can't compare your first draft to somebody's completed novel. That thing has probably been through years of blood, sweat, tears, editing, rewrite, laptop across the room, all of it. Do it, and don't let anybody stop you, because there will be well-meaning people who, when they find out that you're a writer, they want to know what you write. They have lots of opinions about what you should write, what's happening in the world, all kinds of things. It's your story. Do it and write what you want to write. You'll be able to fix things and finesse things and whatnot, Like get it down, get it on the paper or in the word processor and start there because we will talk ourselves out. I talked myself, oh my goodness, talked myself out of writing for years. And it was almost a relief when I was finally able to do it because that's what it
Yep.
was pouring, it was ready. And I wish I hadn't bottled it up as long as I did. So just do it. Like
Yep.
my
Fantastic advice. That's a really positive note to end. So Nikki, thank you very much for coming and sharing your not just your story with us, but your personal story and your journey and how you got there and how much you've done and even with cancer that you went through that and still how important writing is that persevered through this whole other ordeal you were going through and it says a lot about how hardworking you are and perhaps a little persistent and have a lot of perseverance in your personality. I don't know, but
little bit.
that's
But
that's how
well,
it comes up.
I will also say that the Fictionary community was pivotal in this. And that's advice I always give new writers is you have to find a community of fellow creatives who do get the you're ready to strangle your characters. Um, because it's a different kind of struggle and you can show up in Fictionary and not even have to say anything other than maybe the scene is bugging me and everybody's like, oh yeah, I hear you, and they can empathize, whereas somebody who's like, yeah, but dinner still needs to be made, what are you talking about?
Yep.
It's just very different. Find that community that you belong to that's supportive, that you don't want it to be like a codependent where you feel terrible about yourself whenever you ask for advice. And you have done such a great job cultivating a community here that is just priceless. The amount of support and care that goes into this community is just amazing. And it's only gotten bigger and better. That's what's so wonderful. So thank you for creating this space. I would not have been able to do it without it.
Well, that's really, I mean, that makes me feel wonderful. I'm just gonna say that. That just makes me feel good. So thank you. Alrighty, well, thank you everybody. Recording will go up, of course. It usually takes us a few days, but we'll get there. And again, you have the link for Nikki's book, so buy her book. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.